You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 205. Does anyone else feel embarrassed about their breakup? Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, Breakup Coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. How are you doing today? Let's talk about embarrassment. I had a brave heart reaching out to me asking if I could do a podcast episode about feeling embarrassed about your breakup. And the ironic part was she was embarrassed she even asked me to do it. So that was funny. I asked her, what's coming up for you? Why are you feeling embarrassed? What are you embarrassed about? And she mentioned that she was really embarrassed to talk to her friends and family about the guy she had been seeing because they all knew it wouldn't work out, but she believed in it anyways, and she stayed and she tried to make things work out, and now she is finally realizing that it is not working out and she's embarrassed about it. So I know she's not alone in this. We've all been there. We've all done that. And if it's not in a breakup sense, it's probably like with a job or with a friendship or with a family member. So here's what we're going to do. This makes total sense. We're going to talk all about it, and we're going to talk about it in a couple of different ways. The first and very foremost thing that I want to say is that embarrassment is a normal part of our human experience here on the planet. It is absolutely normal. The reason it's hard to talk about and hard to experience is because we don't talk about it, especially in heartbreak. Because we don't openly talk about heartbreak, it's considered inappropriate. People say don't air out your dirty laundry. And it's like, really? It's the most devastating thing that's happened. And heartbreak is something that happens in everyone's lives and will continue to happen. So why don't we let people talk about it, right? So yes, it's normal. Yes, other people feel embarrassed. And yes, you're going to be okay if you're experiencing embarrassment right now because of your breakup. Now, please remember that thoughts create feelings. So your embarrassment is a body experience that is coming from what you're making your breakup mean about you, what you're making other people's perceived or literal judgments about you. With that being said, I have a couple of things I want to say about embarrassment. Personally, in my life, I want to go for what I want. I will probably feel embarrassed in my life regardless of what I'm doing or what I'm going after in life. For example, I can go after and pursue my millionaire mama version of me, and I will potentially feel embarrassed along the way. I could also not go after that authentic desire and stay the same, not make any changes in my life or to myself, and I will potentially feel embarrassed along the way. So if those are my options, I'm going to go with the first one. And I remember way back in the day, I was, and I am still following a girl named Katie Hearn on Instagram. And she used to be more of an influencer on Instagram, but now her and her husband own a lot of companies together, and they're just really cool people. They're a fun couple to watch and grow with. And she said once that there were always going to be people who didn't like her. So she could be herself and people wouldn't like her, or she could be a fabricated version of herself and people wouldn't like her. So she was going to be herself. And I really loved when she pointed that out, because that's a huge fear of mine, is being seen at this mass level. I'm not going to be liked by everyone, and that's rejection, which leads to embarrassment, right? It also reminded me of something my coach Brooke Castillo has said in the past, of if someone's not going to like my life, it's not going to be me. And I bring all this up because I feel like embarrassment often comes from what we think other people are thinking about us, whether those are real or not. So sometimes we just think those people are thinking bad things about us, and sometimes they actually are. But what really matters is that what I think of myself? Because if I didn't think those things about myself, what they thought about me wouldn't matter as much. It wouldn't be so heavy, right? So here's the thing. The people who actually love and care for you are going to love and care for you even when you do weird things, even when you do things that they don't agree with, even if you make a complete fool of yourself. I remember when I started breakup coaching, I knew two things for certain. Number one, I was going to do something embarrassing for sure. I didn't know what I was doing, all things business. And two, I was going to experience rejection in a lot of different ways. Rejection from potential clients, rejection from negative reviews on the podcast, rejection from no one showing up to my webinars. Like, it was a whole thing. And I went into wanting to become a breakup coach, knowing all of that. And that was one of my favorite life lessons. Going in and knowing that those things would happen made me really see who my people were. I also realized that the people who have judgments about me and what I'm doing or don't like what I'm doing are typically people who aren't even in the arena with me. They are just spectators who have no idea what it's like doing what I do. The people who do what I do, other coaches, are the ones cheering me on. And I want you to think about that when it comes to you chasing love or going after a relationship that really matters to you. The people who will get it will be people who have lived it. And the people who have a lot of judgment on you are the people who may have never lived that kind of experience and don't get it, and that's okay. So for example, I have a really, really good friend of mine, and she's always cheering me on. She loves me. She cares for me. And even when I make a fool of myself, she's like standing next to me being like, yeah, girl, you did it. You fell flat on your face and I'm here for it. And at the same time, she's never been in a long-term relationship in her adult life. So when I'm going through relationship stuff and we're talking about it, she doesn't really get it. And she has thoughts and she shares those thoughts with me, and oftentimes we disagree. And I know she loves me through it all, but it's also something that I'm not going to take on her as my thoughts because she's never lived it. I'll do something embarrassing and we'll both laugh at it and we'll move forward from it. And yeah, I just think it's interesting. The people who have things to say are often people who have never actually lived the experience before. So then it comes down to, if other people are experiencing embarrassment, if it's normal to feel embarrassed, how do we cope with embarrassment? So I see two methods. The first one is that we have to get used to feeling embarrassed. You're going to experience it multiple times throughout your life. And instead of getting defensive when you feel embarrassed, instead of retreating and isolating when you feel embarrassed, we can actually get used to feeling embarrassment and rejection and not making it mean anything about us, right? My favorite example of this is this man. He was probably in his 60s or 70s. I was on a beach in Florida, and I was at a bachelorette party, and he approached every single one of us asking for our phone numbers. And of course, every single one of us said no. And I was sitting there having a conversation with him, and he told me, Dorothy, my wife died, and my therapist said it's time to get out dating again. It's been 2 years since my wife died. I want companionship, but my therapist told me to go ask random people for their phone numbers so that I could get used to experiencing rejection, and I could get used to getting rejected and not making it mean anything about myself. And I love that. I feel like that's such an amazing example of how to feel a feeling and not react to it or make it anything about you. So do embarrassing things on purpose to feel that feeling and not react to it. It's going to happen a lot in your life, and you might as well get used to it. The second method that I think is really important is looking at what you are believing about yourself that makes you feel embarrassed. Like I said before, oftentimes it's related to what you think other people think of you. Sometimes that's not what other people are thinking at all. Like, literally consider this. If you saw someone go after their relationship like it meant the world to them, and they did everything they could do to save it while everyone around them is telling them not to go for it, do you really think negatively of that person? Because your answer to that is very telling. To me, I'm like, get it, girl. Fucking go for it. You want that? Go after it. Try on life. You might as well go for what you truly desire and what you authentically want. Because you have to live that experience through. People can tell you what you should or should not do, but until you live it, it's a completely different experience. Secondly, What is it that you think other people are thinking of you? Do you believe that about yourself? If you're thinking that everyone else thinks you're an idiot, do you think of yourself as an idiot? If you think that they're thinking you're ignorant or clueless, do you think that about yourself? Because normally, when we don't think that about ourselves, we aren't as triggered if someone else thinks that about us because we know for certain that that's not true. For example, if someone told me that they really hated my brown hair, I'd be like, clearly that's a them thing because I'm blonde. But what are your perceptions of you when it comes to the breakup, when it comes to what you're embarrassed about in terms of the relationship? Can you reframe them? Can you choose different stories about you? And here are some reframes that I've helped other clients adapt that maybe you could try on. I loved really hard. I'm glad I put it all out there. I tried everything I could, and that's something to be proud of. I went after something that mattered to me. I'm learning. I'm proud of myself for going after it. Embarrassment is normal. You're not alone in it. Get used to feeling embarrassed. Be yourself. Go after what you want because you'll potentially be embarrassed either way. Figure out what you think others are thinking about you and see if that's the perception you hold of yourself, and try on those new thoughts or reframes that I offered here. All right, my brave hearts, I love you so much. Thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast for more episodes like this. And if you found any of our episodes helpful, we would love a written review on the Apple Podcast app to help other heartbroken humans turn their pain into power and their heartbreak into happy. If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.